sure everyone knows Unilever. I don't need an introduction about the company. But what I would want each one of you to just think through is, what would be a consumer for Unilever? I think, it would be guys like you and me, I'm assuming. Um like our daily products like a Knorr soup, a Dove soap, and, a Surf Excel, for example, is what you and me would buy. Uh, you know, um, but let's try and understand firstly who would be a customer for Vaidi and his team. Any guesses? Anyone? And definitely, I can say that it's not you and me again. We are not the customers of what Vaidi and his team builds. So I would just want a quick show of hands. Anyone can just guess, maybe within the audience, and let's see if someone gets it right. Yeah, that's bang on. I think we just got the right answer out there. So what Vedi and his team builds out are platforms to engage distributors, retailers, the kirana shops around, and the large format stores as well. And so that's a very different paradigm that we are operating in terms of engaging that retailer, engaging how they order and how they go around that. And that's the customer versus consumer conundrum, I would say, out there. So I just wanted to give that quick perspective, and keeping that persona in mind is where we would all talk about during this discussion. And so while we all talk about the customer engagement, but right now the customer and the consumer are two different entities. And that's what we want to make sure that you guys are aware. So yeah, welcome, Vedi. I think, maybe if you want to just add anything that I might have missed in this part.
No, perfectly put. When you engage with the consumer vis-a-vis when you engage with the customer, the objective of engagement is very different, right? As a consumer, for you, it's how they use your product, consume your product, be it soups to soaps. They are the ones who are going to consume your product. So it's basically how you drive that engagement through a brand's lens is what a consumer view is. For a customer, when you engage, it's not necessarily from a consumption perspective. The objective is very different, right? The objective is that you should help them, sell more and sell better so that they drive their business, right? It's not necessarily about the consumption. So how do you differentiate that engagement and build a business for your customers is what is the important piece here. So, and that's fairly, different, considering that most of the customers that we are talking about here in millions are digitally non-native as well. So how do you get to them through digital means is the trick, and that's predominantly the entire idea of connecting or engaging with them.
Right. So I'm sure a lot of you, for example, like just to draw parallels in the universe that you guys might come from. If you are in healthcare, there are these medical representatives. If you are in an insurance, for example, we are talking about agents. All of these are again customers for you, internally, externally, that might happen. And that's the kind of platforms, of engagement that these guys built, and they are digitizing that and trying to transform the wave in terms of how they actually see Unilever and how they interact with Unilever. So that's the quick context in terms of how we would zoom in on some of the topics out there. And definitely we'll try to make room for questions and make it interactive as we go along. Fantastic. So Vedi, just trying to understand, like, the core proposition for a Unilever largely would be its goods. Like, it's known for a Dove, a Surf Excel, and a soup, and what they build. In this kind of an ecosystem, what does the role of technology play? And trying to drive a tech-first culture in such a large unicorn, I would say. How does it work out? Maybe if you can just shed some light on building a tech-first culture in a giant like Unilever.
Look, I'll take it in two steps, right? First thing first, within Unilever, building that culture, right? That becomes the first step for us to start looking at ourselves as a digitally native and active company. What what is the important piece here is that it's important for us to make sure that it doesn't become, ownership of one person, a CEO or a CDO, a CDIO or anything, right? It has to be embedded into the culture or, every level of the organization. So that becomes the first step. How do you do that? It's only by getting that structure in right at every level, every function to drive digital adoption, both internally and externally. When I say externally, when we go out into the market and industry as well, right? So that's the first part of it. The second part is when you go externally, every market is different, right? For some markets like Thailand, the moment you go outside, you see even a small kiosk or a roadside thela, they have two tabs just next to each other. They are like digitally completely active on multiple forms, be it socio-commerce, messaging, or any video platforms or whatever it is. That's one way to look at it. Whereas take an example of India or Indonesia. In many cases, if you go beyond tier 2, tier 3 cities, it's predominantly feature phones, not even smartphones that are there. So if you want to really bring in a culture and an experience which is common across, this varied, difference, it becomes very different, right? Difficult. So how do you build a digital connect which spans right from digital native to digital active and digitally non-native, end users is what makes the entire, conundrum. And that's predominantly what we focus on when we go outside Unilever as we step there.
I'm sure there would be a lot of research that goes into get things right in some of these markets, I'm sure. And, considering the breadth that Unilever operates in so many countries that you actually operate and provide your technology solutions, for example, how do you manage, say, something like a speed and agility? Like it's a very large ecosystem, so many different problem statements to address, and how do you go ahead with managing speed in such a large system, being such a large ecosystem, for example?
Like I said, when we define ourselves internally, of late, what we have done is across all our functions, there is a digital ecosystem that has been created. Be it operational teams, the technology teams, everyone come together. Be it supply chain, finance, HR, or the customer development or the sales function everywhere. There's a center of excellence that we create where we bring everyone together, right? That's the first part. There is a digital engagement that happens on bringing business value first, right? That's the second part of it. The moment you do that, what happens is next is take this into the market, test the waters, right? And when we test the waters, it's not in hundreds or tens or hundreds. We test the waters in lakhs. So that's basically what is important for us to probably get the real pulse that is there in the market, right? So for us to test, learn, probably fail fast or learn fast becomes very, very important. Once we do that, when we step up next, it becomes a seamless journey. The second part of it is also that every big program that we run, we don't run it as a technology program at all. It's a business first program, right? Digital business program that we run it as. That's the second part of it. And as we run that, what also happens is that, we have a very, well-defined change management template that goes on ground, right? Understand the impact objective of each and every person who's going to be involved, the personas who are going to be involved in the entire program function, and drive that change management through them on a regular basis. That helps us land it much faster. So, of course, there is a process in place. Not always that it works, right? But there are always, chances. For example, if you look at it, the moment you land this entire change management program in, sometimes it helps. 2019, when we started looking at the entire B2B e-commerce agenda, it was more of a testing the waters. No one expected COVID to hit in 2020. That testing waters became our way of selling. for the next 3 years.
That's interesting.
So that's basically where you need to probably be ahead of your time, but be ready to scale it up as quickly as possible.
Sure. That definitely helps. So would you consider a lot of elements that you spoke right now, being able to do testing, being able to see whether it actually works in certain markets, sometimes even large scale testing. I see a lot of this actually, something like getting your product market fit right, something what startups would largely do. So would you call yourself like a startup within a larger ecosystem of Unilever, or you see it very differently out there?
No. So for us, very specifically considering that we start looking at outside Unilever, we need to also start looking at how the market or the industry is acting, right? And unless and otherwise we act first, we act fast, we lose the game. So we definitely keep looking ourselves as agile giant, not necessarily call it a startup, but definitely we want to make sure that we land it quick, test, and not necessarily take that time to probably be in the market. But once we are there, the entire process of scaling up becomes automatic, right? So like I said, what we had planned in 2019 for a B2B e-commerce view, in 2020 August, we hit our 2023 plan because of COVID. We didn't plan it. But 2023 plans were hit in August 2020. Now we had to go back to the drawing room and start planning for the next 3 years. And as we speak now, we have probably about 4 million odd outlets in 45 different markets, in no time. That's something that you should probably be aware of, be ready for. So that's the only way you can probably reach that scale and speed.
Sure. And any specific challenges that I don't know whether I can ask this question, but yeah, I'll just take the liberty still, and you can answer based on your policy. Well, any specific challenges that you feel that you faced? Maybe if you can narrate some of those, and how did you tackle why scaling? And how did you go around tackling that kind of problem statement? Maybe.
Yeah, sure. Look, the first challenge is basically, like I said, we are dealing with digitally non-native users. So how do we actually reach out to them? That's the first challenge, right? One way to do it is build that value realization for your end user. How do you build that value realization for your end user? Defines on how you are able to scale. That's the first part. Once you are done with it, of course, external factors help or probably, resist your scale up. Right. But having said that, for example, when we did our entire, scale up journey, we with COVID, we could actually scale up our connect with our retailers through digital means. Now, when we did that, the next challenge came in. Retailers are always used to the offline mode of connect. We continue to have our offline mode of connect, right?
Yeah, I'm sure now, a lot of people over here would be able to relate that, COVID, while, a lot of changes happened during COVID, the moment, that started receding, offline started,
So, yes. Yeah. So we don't want to come out of that offline mode, because that's always been our, the strength in the market, right? But having said that, what will this do is, so now that I'm also digitally connecting, what will this do is it will bring in a bit of a break or a communication gap, because from a retailer perspective, for me, Unilever, from a Unilever, it was always been my distributor sales team who have always been the front face. Now I'm directly engaging with them as well. So now the communication and the engagement, there is a duplication that comes in. Okay, one. Two, if the communication is very different, then there is a level of trust that is slowly getting to erode with that. So I don't want that to happen. So how do I bring the entire omni-channel experience together is the next step for me. That's the challenge. So that's predominantly what I'm trying to build at this point of time, to bring everyone who's part of the ecosystem, all personas who are part of the entire journey, has to have the same experience, same way of looking at the problem. So that's predominantly the next challenge that we are trying to handle. So, when you start off, scale and adoption becomes the first challenge. Second one, if you have multiple ways of engagement, multiple channels of engagement, your journey or your experience should not break at any point of time. How do you make sure that it becomes a wholesome experience across? Becomes the next part of the challenge that we are trying to close.
Right. So I want to still continue with the thought of customer experience and how does that play. But before I move on to that thought process, you touched upon briefly about another persona in the entire journey of your customer, which is your retail stores that we try and engage with, and you touch upon trust building for that persona, which is a distributor. How difficult, and I'm sure like a lot of people out here in the audience would have similar models of operating. There is a distributor or a middleman in between who is in the offline format, in the traditional format, who becomes pivotal in your strategy to actually make sure that your GTM is via that distributor. How do you build that trust factor in his mindset that you're not trying to take away anything from him, and you're actually empowering him to sell more as well? Any insights on that?
Yeah. So when we started this journey, the biggest resistance came in from our distributors, because they thought that the business is going away from them, right? Basically, a distributor's role is in 4 steps, right? 1, be in the market and take the demand capture. The second one is they're also the face of engagement with the retailers. The third one is the fulfillment part, right? And the fourth one, most important piece, is they're in most of the distributive trade markets, the D&E markets, they're also the credit partners for the retailers.
That's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's predominantly where, the trick of the business is, right? So we need to make sure that as a part of this entire, plan of digitization, we made sure that firstly, the distributor was part of the plan, engage with them, and how do we make sure that anything that, the idea is to bring in efficiencies, sell more, at the same time, your turnover and, cost effectiveness that comes in there, right? How do you not really erode the revenues for the distributors in this entire journey was the first thing that we took care of. Then started off our journey going to the retailers, right? So we always looked at Unilever first in the early 2000. How do we reach out to the market? So 2005 till 2017, 18, we always looked at how the distributor can go to the market. Even our channels were defined based on how the distributors actually are structured.
Right.
From 2017, 18 onwards, we've pivoted it from distributor to the retailer, where we've started building that segments, cohorts, and our channels based on what the retailers want, but at the same time making sure that the distributors are not losing the value generation for them.
Right. That's very interesting. Keeping, I think, and you touched upon it, right? But you did not mention it as your initial challenges, by the way. But distributor and keeping that trust within that distributor ecosystem was still a big challenge, definitely. And you made sure that he doesn't feel devalued in the entire transformation process. And it's interesting to also know how Unilever has grown and started seeing by direct first to distributor led to now retailer led engagements, which brings upon to us to the customer experience, the whole CX buzzword. What's your take? How do you see that transitioning and changing within your ecosystem? And does customer experience play a large part in the growth cycle for you?
It does, definitely, right? Let me call out what we, from a Unilever perspective, think about it, right? First thing first, our customer experience and consumer experience are 2 big growth factors for us. So we do not necessarily, at any point of time, that is something that is the priority for our business, right? That's one. The second one, from a brand perspective, building a purpose around a brand makes it very, very important, right? So we also continue to keep saying that, brands with purpose grow, people with purpose thrive. And this is something that is defined in everything that we try to do. So once those 2 things are done, what we generally do is we also build our sales function is not called sales function. It is called customer development.
Oh,
Okay, that in itself is a big difference on how we start looking at our customers, right? It's not necessarily our business. It's our business plus how do we grow our customers together. So that's predominantly where it comes in. And like I said, now that we have started engaging with our customers directly, through digital means, it also throws out a lot of insights on how do I build that. Many people were talking about how do I build that hyper personalization with my consumers or customers rather, to drive, help them to sell more and earn more. That is predominantly what we are looking at. So we've always been used to that, mass promotion capabilities, that the campaigns that we run, everyone gets the same set of campaigns, etc. So we'll be moving outside that based on how my retailer is acting, or probably the entire way that he's actually in the market. So there might be a small retailer, not a big value, but he's potentially going to be big with a digital connect that is going to come into him. He will be looked at as a completely different channel from what we are looking at him now. We might call him probably a Kirana store now, but we will start moving him from a Kirana store into a super value store, something that we call him, based on the potential and not necessarily what he buys now. So those shifts that are happening now helps us get to the next level of engagement with our customers.
Right. And how does MarTech in general play a role in this whole customer experience side of things for you?
Look, it's very, very important. When I say MarTech specifically, it's not just MarTech, right? We look at the entire ecosystem as a full chassis for us. People were explaining it, even the way Mr. Deepak had put in the list of all the capabilities that are there, etc. When I drive only my distributive sales, it's a mix of 16 different products that I drive. MarTech is a part of it, but not necessarily a siloed part of it. It connects with everything. So I have my data and analytics practice that actually feeds into my MarTech. I have my base app, which actually throws in a lot of insights for my MarTech to actually go engage, right? And based on my the way I actually cohort or segment my retailers, this actually helps me start personalizing the engagements that I have with my retailers, building the trust, and more importantly, also giving me that kind of comfort that we are going to the right retailer at the right point of time. That is predominantly what we look at from the entire tech ecosystem.
Right. And it's pretty interesting to know that there are 16 odd products in your chassis, the way you call it, and they're all talking to each other. And I just want, which brings us towards the end, set of questions, largely in terms of how do you choose whether you need to build or buy? I'm sure that that's a question in a lot of enterprises, largely because they have the money. Avlesh once asked something out there.
Yeah,
no, I was
they
going to
not
ask.
necessarily have the money, okay, but let's continue.
No, so thank you for doing this. Very insightful. And folks in the audience who could relate to the problem statement Vaidya and their team is solving at Unilever should just catch him on the sidelines. Vaidya, on the same very question, right? I've seen that product ecosystem. Keyur shared with me the one that you guys were trying to make a case for, and it's very fascinating. Not just the selection of the tools, it's fine, today you're using something, tomorrow you'll use something else for something, but then just putting it all together in the way that it drives towards your larger objective. I find a lot of practitioners struggle to do this.
Sorry?
I find a lot of practitioners, right, struggle to just put this in that perspective. And it's not that person or that team to blame. It's actually very hard in a large enterprise setup. You're trying to move so many small pieces together to build a bird's eye view into what you really want. What is that framework? What is that mental model that drives you guys to do in the way that you guys do? What is that takeaway, right? If people were to sort of approach this irrespective of the problem statement, right? Let's say whatever the problem statement is in terms of core identification of customer and their relative engagement, how do you go about building this mental model and then sell it to the organization, right? So that everybody is, that's the hardest part. It's not about you setting up you wanting something. Most practitioners, I've seen them struggle sell it to their own company. What do you do? What does it take? What is that mental framework, model, or anything that you would like to share there? Because, as a witness, I was fascinated by what you guys have been able to do at a Unilever scale, right? A small company or a startup trying to do this, early stage company trying to do this, a new incubated business trying to do this, all of that is easy to understand. But in a Unilever setup at such a large scale, incredibly hard. Most people struggle with that, right? What does it take for you to get there? How do you think about this?
Look, I'll probably answer that in 3 steps, right? First thing first, like I said, we start anything that we want to build with the scale in mind, right? What is the end state scale that we are going to build with, right? Though we will do our pilots, POCs or whatever it is, but the idea is to get to the scale that we would want to, right? For us, currently the way I'm looking at it is, let me put it this way, right? Global retailer reach is close to about 25 million. Unilever reaches to 12.5 million of that 25 million, directly or indirectly. Out of that 12.5, only 7 million is what we directly reach. Okay. Now, for me, that gap of 15 million, the way, or 18 million, the way I look at it, right, is what is the opportunity. So I need to probably plan something that goes to that scale. So the first thing is scale and business value realization. That's the first thing that we look at. The second part of it is, just from a technology perspective, some of the simple, it probably would sound simple, but that's basically a framework that at least I drive with the team, is that scale, the niche expertise, ability to build a roadmap for the future, and more importantly, whether I would be able to do it within my ecosystem or not. So those are the 4 questions I generally answer. So if most of this is going to be, not necessarily be answered by my own team, or probably I don't really, it doesn't make sense for me to, build that niche expertise, I generally go in for the experts on the ground, right? That's the way it works. For example, let me say, if I really have to build a payment ecosystem for India, I am not going to do something, what UPI has not done, right? Or probably, even from a marketing tech perspective, there are so many, readiness from a product roadmap perspective, regulations, what you would probably want to build in the future roadmap. I will probably, at this point of time, leave it to the experts, right? Whereas, if I need to build my core commerce engine, or my, just an example, ERP, or even if I need to build a full-fledged a loyalty program that goes through Unilever, distributor, retailer, consumer, everywhere, I will still want to do it because I would probably want to own the experience there completely, right? So that's a predominantly at a high level thumb rule, the way I work, but there's always exceptions to that wherever we would want to. But that's a simple way to look at it, right? The third part is, once you have built it, or rather not once you have built it, probably at the time of building it, it is also important to bring every component together to make sure that, like I said, the experience doesn't break at any point of time. For me, when the sales team goes on ground and talks to the retailer, he should get the same communication as what I am going to probably nudge him through my, digital marketing tools, or probably the message that he gets from WhatsApp, or probably what we have done on Facebook, or to be frank, on a B2B environment, we've been working with WebEngage here. For the first time in FMCG, we've had, engagements through YouTube and ordering that comes through YouTube, right? You would probably have not expected that to happen at a B2B level. So how do I make sure that all this comes together in a single, journey? is what is important. So when we sit together to look at a digital and the online and the offline journey to coming together. And that's predominantly what builds the ecosystem for us entirely.
Wonderful, Vaidy. I'm sure like we can open up for a few audience questions. Yeah, we already have one hand raised out there.
Quick question. You mentioned that one of the purpose of the platform that you were building was to cover the full spectrum of distributors, right? Or retailers rather. Mostly the distributor platforms that I have worked in the past is for commerce or transaction oriented. And the business case is usually efficiency and, obviously selling more products. How are you covering this acquisition of new retailers? I mean, how are you aligning your platform to this strategy? Just some more color on that.
Look, first thing first is, like you said, yes, predominantly a distributive trade tech ecosystem has always been transactional to a large extent. What we are trying to do is, first thing first, we are trying to move out of just a transactional view to it, to get into, like I said, a product view on what exactly is that, how are we going to actually go to each and every person or each and every journey that we go through till the point we go to our consumer, right? At the same time, which also means that we are also in a journey where we probably want to, rewire the entire distributive trade technology and make it very, very microservice oriented. So wherever I need a plug and play kind of a model is where I would probably get to, right? Irrespective of whether it's my current, stack or, if I need to probably rewire or, re-architect my stack, the idea is to make sure that it's predominantly based on, microservices architecture so that I plug and play where I want to probably bring in the right kind of services. So that helps me bring in that change in the journey at each and every persona level. Like I said, a distributor has probably 4 roles that he plays now. At later point of time, it might be only 2 or 3 of it. I should be able to, have a technology that supports that change for the distributor from, moving into a 4-pronged approach to just a 2-pronged approach there. So that's one of the ways that we will be looking at it.
I think if we have time, one last question. That's okay. Just one last one here.
Hello. Yeah, hi. I'm Maria. I'm from AVP Network. So like you said that it's difficult to reach into tier 2, tier 3 cities where digital has not yet, transpired so much. So how do you think mass media as a platform has maybe aided or Unilever uses it as part of its process to transform into digital, in the sense of brand awareness or let's say just acquisition?
Okay. First thing first, want to break that myth. It's one thing that we also realized a bit late or probably through experiments is, it's difficult to go to tier 3 or rural states. Let me give an example. Our biggest ever digital campaign globally was done in rural UP. Globally, right? Digital campaign. And that is what actually won the Keynes Gold, about. And this was in 2014-15, I'm talking about, where digital was not really hitting, not necessarily our, urban India, but, even rural India. So the ability to actually adopt the moment you give them an opportunity is like crazy. Like I told you, some of these markets in India or probably Indonesia, we actually realize that people are happy to work on a feature phone to just order, not necessarily a smartphone as well. Where the reason being, the physical connect or a physical industry, the physical industry there is very, very, not connected. So it's much easier for them to connect digitally. Okay, it's easier for them to connect digitally than physically in many cases. So it's just a matter of giving them that connect and opportunity with 5G coming in, with the kind of exposure that we have. We feel that it's much more faster and easier to go to tier 2, tier 3 or rural area where the adoption is much faster than what you have in tier 1 or tier 2, because here they have an opportunity to go beyond digital and go physical as well. There the opportunity is not there. So they will probably take it the first opportunity they get to go digital. So that's a myth that we thought, but we've also realized that, it's much better, easier for us to go to the smaller retailers digitally and connect. Or so for us, a strategy which probably I shouldn't be talking about, but let me do that. So the strategy is also that our small stores are probably going to be our digital first stores, whereas the mid and large stores, we are going to look at it as digital complementary stores. So that's the way we are looking at it in many cases at this point of time.
Pretty interesting insight out there. Thanks, Vaidi, for all the insights that you have given in this session. I hope the audience liked it as well.